Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Masterclass episode 21. And this week, it will be the Miracle Rogue. Can we find a miracle, or will it just flutter out? That is the question. The other question is, why is it so mother effing hot? Oh my god, it is brutal! It is brutal. If you hear extra noises and sounds, it is because me and my co-host Tarn are forced to keep air circulation going. It is a disaster. How you doing, buddy? How's it over there?
I'm doing good. I turned off my AC, so I probably won't be doing good in a couple of minutes. But otherwise, been good. Been a hectic week, but really looking forward to the show, and I think we got a good one lined up here. Yeah,
absolutely. It will be a good show. And as with all of our good shows, I think we should warm it up.
You know, as hot as it is here, I'm feeling a little cold. Cold.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm feeling a little cold too. So let us get to the warm up.
It's so hot I can't speak correctly, but I'm still a little cold.
And yeah, this week we're gonna have a little fun with this warm up.
Uh-oh. I'm not prepared. Meaning I did not put Illidan in my deck.
This is what we're gonna do. We'll take that guy.
Oh my god, are you gonna random it?
It's as close to randoming it as it's gonna get. As in, I literally.
Are you gonna make a miracle rogue on me? Is that what you're doing?
I just made a rogue in 5 seconds.
What is going on? I feel like I'm not prepared. I'm really not prepared for this.
Thing is, I didn't have any non-ladder decks, so I just deep sixed a deck, and here we go. Let's have a metaless warm up.
All right. Well, I got one coming back at you.
A non-ladder.
I got one for you.
A non-ladder deck.
Oh, it's non-ladder.
Oh, I like it.
You know it.
There's no meta in this warm up, my friend.
Do I play ladder in the warm up? Come on. I play Hunter in the warm up.
Oh, jeez. You're a special kind of person, Tarn, is what you are.
Hey man, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, this is a tribute. You know, everyone's saying the Hunter. Oh my God, it's dead. Not a class to nerf. We gotta pay tribute at least. You know, right? We gotta play some.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Sinister Strike.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Who you want me to kill?
Let's get a card.
All right.
Oh God, these choices. Okay.
You gotta make your choices fast. So this is speed round.
I know. I'm warming up. All right, we're good to go.
Here we go.
I'm set. Done. Poison.
Yeah, why not?
Here we go.
Oh my God, Mr. Making Choices fast. It's taking a little time. A little bit of time. Oh God, that's right. Hey now.
Don't mess with Tusker.
All right.
Don't mess with Tusker.
Here we go.
I asked you nicely to not mess with Tusker, and that's what you do.
Yep, Tusker has been messed with, my friend.
Uh-oh.
A 1/4 taunt.
It's the silverback.
I don't even know what to do with that.
You know, just a little gorilla. Oh. How unkind. Okay.
Just going for a little tempo. That's all. Just a little bit of tempo. Oh. So he didn't want to play that other guy. Oh, here we go.
Gotta let the dogs out every once in a while, you know? No big deal.
Oh, fair enough. Let the doggies out. Nothing wrong with that.
Here we go.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, I'm 1 mana short. Fail. Fail. Fail.
Love it. I love it.
Such a fail. This rogue is such a fail. Oh,
Handle it.
oh, this rogue is such a fail.
It's alright. It's alright. We saw how you picked those cards. Did you just pick the top 30 rogue cards in the book?
No, I just picked the first I could find.
Here we go.
Sweet. Oh, Shiv. Damn.
Already attacked.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say I'm playing this really wrong.
Yeah, beat it.
This is definitely my rogue warm-up. I get to make all my mistakes here in the warm-up and then play really well for the
warm
rest.
it up. Exactly. I mean, I will say this. Blizzard doesn't make that bad of a deck. You know, if you guys are looking for a deck to play that doesn't cost you anything, why not pick the basic Hunter deck?
Yeah, I believe it.
You know, if you don't want to create one, it's good. I got some decent basic synergy going on. Ooh, Fan of Knives.
Here we go.
Oh no!
GG.
It's alright.
Well played.
That's what we warm it up
I'd
for.
say
That's
well
what we warm it
played
up
for you. That was as bad of a warm-up as will ever occur. I hope you all enjoyed it. So,
I enjoyed it. For all those times you crashed my pirate party, man. Come on. Come on.
I'm going to go and
Enjoyed it.
destroy that
Enjoyed it.
deck real quick. Like,
Sorry.
it is gone now. So, welcome everybody to episode 21. We're going to be looking at the Miracle Rogue, not that thing that just happened. And we're going to start out with a segment you saw a few weeks ago called Mulligan. So we'll do a little analysis of the Rogue deck and its matchups and how you should mulligan. We will then do some customs with analysis with me playing the Miracle Rogue. And then we're going to cooperatively ladder with that Miracle Rogue. So, the mulligan. So as you guys can see up on screen here, the Miracle Rogue runs a impressive toolkit of many small spells, allowing it to gain a significant amount of card draw with your gadgets in. You also have Azure Drake for card draw. You've got some loot hoarders and a blood mage. So there's a variety of ways, but ultimately the goal of the Miracle Rogue is to survive till the mid game and then finish them off with a big combo, usually involving Leroy, and Van Cleef also is in there for some pretty nice combos.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, it's definitely tempo based. You want to use all your removal and set up big plays with gadgets and hopefully draw into those combos, setting yourself up. And it's a deck that's giving people a lot of trouble right now, both on ladder and in tournament play. It's very popular because it's just it's just a pain to deal with. Its removal toolkit with its potential to deal burst damage is just insane.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the Golden Egg Weekly, it was a great tournament. I casted with Eggy, Root Eggy, and we casted 8 hours of a Swiss-style tournament into a round of 16. And I'd say the Miracle Rogue and the Handlock were the two most common decks. There were not a lot of Hunters now that the Unleash the Hound nerf has come into effect. And it made me acutely aware of why the Rogue deck is so different. This deck does not care about board control. It doesn't want to get it, and it does want to minimize potential board control, but it has no problem waiting for a mid-game Fan of Knives or a combination with a Blade Flurry to basically wipe a board and then hit you for a significant amount of damage. It's a very unique deck in that way. Would you say there's anything else unique about it, Tarn?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's got the tools to deal with some of the rush decks like Zuluk. In those types of situations, it would be carrying a little bit about board control. But otherwise, it's kind of just fine sitting back, drawing some cards, and then having one or two big clears that sets up just like one big, the name of the deck, sets up the Miracle, the huge play, whether that be Leroy with double Shadow Step, or Leroy Shadow Step, Leroy with what's it called? I'm looking right at
Cold Blood.
Cold Blood. I never remember the name of it, but it's got huge burst, while having enough to deal with these rush decks, picking off small things, and actually really enough to deal with mid-range stuff, things like Druid of Claw. It can clear those things out no problem while it sets up its potential mid-game to late-game plays.
Absolutely. So we're going to look at how the Rogue wants to deal with each matchup. There are a few matchups we don't go over here, but there are other matchups that are very similar, so it's pretty straightforward from there. The first matchup we're looking at is the Rogue versus the Warrior. And as we've watched this matchup unfold, I think it's more important. There are pretty standard cards you want versus most matchups. And with the Warrior, I think there are some cards you don't want, and that's what's more interesting. So, for example, you don't really need a Blade Flurry versus a Warrior. You don't need a Sap versus a Warrior. You're still going to want your Deadly Poisons, your Eviscerates, your Backstabs. Loot Hoarder's a fine card. There will probably be some damage done to you, so the Earthen Ring's fine. And we have the Edwin Van Cleef and the SI Agent in separate brackets for another reason. Tarn, you want to tell us about those?
Yeah, absolutely. Both of those are really good potential cards when you have the coin. The SI Agent is pretty much something you want no matter what in most matchups, but it's not as effective in the Warrior. However, it still can be insanely effective with the Backstab SI Agent combo for taking out something like a Frothering Berserker. However, those are a little bit more specific to if you're playing turn 2 with the coin, even more so with Edwin Van Cleef. You're not really looking to do a big combo with him in this case. You're really looking to play him like on a turn 2. Coining out a 4/4 on turn 2 against a Control Warrior can be something that can give that Control Warrior a lot of problems, whether you're just hitting early on aggression to his face or just clearing his early minions such as Armor Smith.
Yeah, and you can even backstab into a coin Edwin Van Cleef for a 6/6, forcing them to maybe use one of their heavy removal spells. They probably won't have a shield block at that point, but they might have the one cost kill a damaged minion.
Right, you could force, and even that would be tough because you would have to force something out like a Cruel Taskmaster / execute combo or a Whirlwind execute, in which case you would have definitely got his value out of him anyway. So he's definitely a really nice early game play if you have the coin, if you have something like Backstab. But then again, Backstab with coin with him is probably your best case scenario looking here. Yeah.
And the other card you're not really going to want in this is the Fan of Knives. So your AoE is not as critical versus the Warrior, but you definitely want your standard toolkit of other direct damage. And you generally, versus in most matchups, aren't interested in Cold Blood. That's a late game combo. Preparation and Shadow Step, if you're using them early, you're really diminishing the returns of later. So you'd really want to use other things. They can do damage, they can combo to make things happen, but you're not using the combos you want, and you're removing the combos you could potentially have later. And generally, we generally don't like the Blood Mage. He usually requires too long to get in to make combos work versus certain situations. But you know, for the most part, your Leroys, your Assassins, your Drakes, your Gadgetins, those are all mid to late game, and the cards that combo with them as well.
Absolutely. It's definitely I'd say one of the tougher early game situations for the Rogue deck, being as it may that your early game one damage card draws like your Shiv and your Fan of Knives are not optimal here with the potential of things like Armor Smith and Acolyte of Pain that the Warrior will be playing. So that kind of limits your early game card draw. Loot Hoarder is still fine. Obviously, he may die instantly to a Cruel Taskmaster or a Whirlwind, but you're not using the spell to, you know, just buff them, give them armor. You're at least getting something out there on the board that they've got to deal with.
Absolutely. The next matchup, I keep confusing it. The next matchup is Rogue versus Hunter. So this is kind of the matchup where you'll see you're wanting every part of the early game toolkit you can get your hands on. That includes your Shivs. That includes your Earthen Rings, your Fan of Knives, your Blade Flurries. These are all things you're going to want to have to bear, and certainly Deadly Poison, Eviscerate, Backstab. You know, we've gone back and forth about the Eviscerate, but ultimately it's such a powerful card that you generally want to have it if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Granted, Hunter is, you know, much less common on the ladder, but you're still going to run into him, and you're still going to, from time to time, run into that aggro Hunter. So things like the Shiv, things like the Fan of Knives are really great. And then, you know, a combo like a Deadly Poison, Eviscerate to take out larger things like Misha from the Animal Companion pack is really nice to have. You really just want to be able to control that early game as much as possible while still giving yourself card draw options. So Shiv, Fan of Knives, Loot Hoarder, all great options for that.
So yeah, if you can get the Hunter down to 20 health, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower, and you keep the board generally clear, you're preventing him from unleashing on you. And that's where your burst damage in the late game, or mid to late game, with your Leroys and your Shadow Steps really come in handy. And this deck is probably one of the strongest decks versus a Hunter that there is, because of not needing for the Rogue to have board control. Yes, they want to prevent the opponent from having board control in most cases, but they don't want board control themselves necessarily.
Yeah, that definitely is true. Although it can end up being a little bit of a race, because a lot of these combos, they come out a lot of times turn 8, turn 9, sometimes as late as turn 10, after you've set yourself up with big auctioneer plays. So once you get through that setup, it can be a little bit of a race, and that's why it's really important to minimize damage and maintain that control in the early game. So once you get to that racing phase, you can come out ahead.
Yeah, but you certainly don't want to flood the board to gain control.
Absolutely. Absolutely not. Yep.
Before we move on to the Rogue versus Rogue, the mirror matchup, I do want to mention one other card in the previous matchup, the Rogue versus Warrior, the Shiv. The reason we've not brought the Shiv into that is because it's 1 damage for 1 card draw. And there's nothing wrong with that, but ultimately, most of the things the Warrior is going to have out in the early game, he's going to want to have 1 damage on. You can think of the Acolyte of Pain, you can think of the Armor Smith, any of the Berserker, the Frothing Berserker. You do not want to damage them unless you kill them. So unless you have a really good combo, and the Shiv is the second part of it, you're generally not going to want it. So there are just better cards to have in there versus the Warrior matchup.
Absolutely, yeah. I think with the Warrior you have to be a little bit more choosy. Obviously with the Rogue, just anything that's giving you that card draw and board control is going to be what you're looking for. Yeah.
So the Rogue versus the Rogue. Tarn, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, rogue versus rogue, it definitely comes down to the early game race.
Yeah.
So you are definitely looking for, similar to the hunter, your control cards, your shivs, your eviscerates, your deadly poisons. You're looking for those combos to keep him clear while you're drawing cards.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're trying to draw more cards than he is while maintaining a little bit of a board presence. And that's why that's one of the main reasons why we took out Earthen Ring Farseer in this one, is because you're just really trying to narrow it down to board clear and card draw at this point to try to race them in the early game for a good hand.
And that generally applies to both the Tempo Rogue and the Miracle Rogue. The person who gains a tempo advantage, the person who gains the early game advantage, will generally win. And again, there are ways to come back with big combos, but it gets harder and harder as you move along, with most mirror matchups.
Absolutely. So yeah, just anything that's drawing you cards, keeping the board clear.
Certainly any Van Cleef or SI combos are really sweet.
Those are definitely sweet. And, ultimately with a lot of, if you're in a straight mirror matchup, it ultimately comes down to, who has the better cards, but hopefully keeping some of these ideas in mind, your Mulligan will set you up for that stronger opening hand.
Absolutely.
And if you can get that slight advantage, it can just snowball super quickly in the matchup.
There are some people who believe that you should always keep a Gadget Zen because of how critical it is in the mid game to get the miracle, because that's basically what this deck is built around. What are your thoughts on that?
I can definitely agree with that in some cases. I think in a lot of cases, if your cards are very, very strong and you have the coin, keeping a Gadgetzin is great. So if you have, coin, Gadgetzin, and two great removals, such as like a Deadly Poison and a Backstab, or a Deadly Poison and an SI agent, things like that, keeping a Gadgetzin is great because you can get the jump on your Gadgetzin by playing Gadgetzin on turn 4 and coining, and maybe coining into a Deadly Poison or coining into a Preparation, and getting the ball rolling on your Gadgetzin earlier. But generally speaking, I would lean towards the side of you're going to draw into the Gadgetzin and you just want to solidify that early game and draw into the Gadgetzin, hopefully with the course of drawing 3 or 4 cards by the time you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. I think the critical thing about keeping the Gadgetzin might be in certain matchups where that there's not going to be much going on in the early game, and you're going to have the ability to do more, like, there's a few different matchups where the early game's a little bit slower, and that's where you're going to also want the Gadgetzin.
Absolutely.
So the Warlock is not one of these matchups, which is our next grouping. So the Rogue versus the Warlock, you have to generally mulligan unless you're playing in a tournament, assuming you're playing against the Zulok or another version of an aggressive Warlock. So that's what you see here. And as we've talked about in the past, when you're mulliganing for a Warlock that you're playing against, it's not as critical to have the exact right cards versus the handlock version, because you'll have at least 3 to 4 turns to draw into things. So what we've included here is everything, right? Including the Earthen Ring, Fan of Knives, Edwin Van Cleef, SI Agent, Shiv, Sap, Blade Flurry, Eviscerate, Deadly Poison, Backstab. We got it. Bring it in. What's the thing that's not in here? Well, we've decided the Loot Hoarder is a really bad card. It's really bad because the goal of the Loot Hoarder is to trade and give you card draw. And there are so many things you can see here that give you card draw, and the Loot Hoarder will almost never trade versus an aggro lock. And the 2 reasons are the taunts, the 1/3 taunt, or any taunt to just prevent it from hitting where you want, and then the Mortal Coil. And the worst thing about the Mortal Coil is not only do you not trade, you both get a card. So we just feel like it's not the end of the world to get a Loot Hoarder, but it's not going to help you. So you may as well wait till you've eked out a Mortal Coil or 2 before you play that card, so it's fine to get in the mid-game.
Absolutely, and you'll see the one thing that we have added in place that's unique is the Sap.
That's
And,
right.
you know, you might say, why would you want the sap early game? You're going against aggression. It actually allows you to do things like, say, remove that taunt and get the trade in,
Yep.
or remove a minion and just keep him on tempo. Say he plays a Flame Imp, takes 3 damage to his face. Well, you can sap the Flame Imp back, and he's going to take another 3 damage to the face.
Yep.
Before he even gets to use it again. So the sap is actually a really nice tempo card to also utilize against the Zoolock. And should it happen to be a hand lock in its place, it's another very nice card that you just have sitting around waiting for him to play something like a giant or a drake and taunt it up, and you have a sap ready.
Yeah. Also, if he brings out the handlock brings out a Watcher and enables it with a taunt or with a silence, sapping it might actually be worth it, because then you either force him to use another taunt giver or silence giver, which he would then not be able to use later. The taunt givers on his giants. Another thing about the sap with the Flame Imp combo, so not only are you putting an additional 3 damage on his face, which is 6 total from the Flame Imp, you've prevented 1 turn of attacking you. So it's an effective 6 attack difference, or 6 points of health difference by gaining tempo advantage. And then you've given yourself another turn to deal with this stuff. And as you can see with Rogue, with all these small cards, 1 and 2 mana and combinations of cards makes a gigantic difference.
Absolutely. So yeah, sap can really swing the tide in your favor in any Warlock matchup.
Yeah.
But even more so, you know, in the Zoolock early game.
And we're going to be seeing more about this because we're going to be doing the Rogue versus the Handlock in our Customs with Analysis. So we'll be mulliganing for a Zoolock, and then we'll see how it deals with a Handlock. Because we're not assuming tournament style, in which case you'd mostly mulligan for a Handlock unless you have specific information about your player. Rogue versus the Shami. So there's 2 schools of thought here, and we are in the school of thought that you do not want your AoE versus the Shaman early. You want the Fan of Knives, which is a little bit of AoE, but you don't want your big AoE, your Blade Flurry, till the mid to late game. And their school of thought saying that you want it early, which we disagree with, thinks that there's always going to be stuff coming out with the Shaman, whether it's tempo or otherwise, tons of totems, and you just need ways to clear. Our school of thought is the critical Blade Flurry, Fan of Knives, Blood Mage combos can clear all of the taunts on a board, leaving a few other heavy minions on there in the mid to late game, allowing critical combos with Leroy to finish off your opponent and do critical damage. So it's more important to save that single Blade Flurry for the mid game.
Absolutely. A lot of people like it in the early game, you know, for a Deadly Poison combo to remove the early Feral Spirits.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily wrong, but the Rogue does have enough other options in its toolkit, such as Backstab, Eviscerate, Deadly Poison, SI Agent, that even with the early Feral Spirits, if you have a strong enough hand, you can take care of it, and keeping in mind that you're pretty much going to get a free turn after it if they, say, coined out a Feral Spirit. If they coined out a Feral Spirit and you use something like Backstab, your weapon attack, and an Eviscerate to clear it, well, then you're in great shape, and you still have your Blade Flurry for later on when they're trying to really hunker down and stop you from having lethal.
Yeah, so it's a critical matchup to assume that there's going to be some early game minions with 3 health or more that you're going to have to get rid of. But what's more important is to realize that that is very doable. And that's more important is in the mid to late game when you're going to clear another Feral Spirit or something, a couple totems or a slightly larger minion that have been given taunt and +1 by Defender of Argus. And you're going to need to get rid of those things on a turn where you're doing some critical damage, or at least have a Gadgets in out to get a bunch of draws for the next turn where you'll do the miracle. You'll perform your miracle.
Yep.
The other thing I'd say about the Shaman matchup is there's a few different varieties of Shaman, and ultimately it is your choice. Play out both versions. If you're sort of unsure of whether you want to keep the Flurry and protect yourself early game and give yourself a slightly harder mid game, or if you want to try to eke out that early game, get through it at a slight disadvantage, give them both a shot. This is what we recommend, but ultimately you different play styles like different cards in the early game on this one, so feel it out and let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. That can definitely be a playstyle choice, and along with things like the loot hoarder, you of course do run the risk of it getting earth shocked, and you lost your minion, you lost your card draw potential. So it's really just kind of a playstyle preference there. Personally, I would always go with playing the loot hoarder early, hopefully, because as long as the game goes on, you're just gonna have more and more opportunities to draw those earth shocks anyway. So you might as well get it out there early if you can.
And that you actually bring up a good point with the loot hoarder, and that's another card that you traditionally want early game, which we don't want here, is the Edwin Van Cleef. And the reason is the reason you were mentioning about the loot hoarder. It can be hexed, which the loot hoarder isn't usually, but it can be earth shocked as well. And so earth shocking in Edwin Van Cleef is quite painful, especially when you put a few cards and possibly a coin into building him up. So the really ideal situation here is to bring out a loot hoarder, have that draw the silence, and then bring out a Van Cleef with a combo. And that's pretty strong, even though you lose the card draw of the loot hoarder. But that in general is why we don't want the Van Cleef versus the shaman.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything's going to get silenced, it'd be okay to lose the one card from the loot hoarder, especially early on. That's most likely going to be his entire turn, with the exception of also getting to maybe play a totem as well. Yeah. But it won't put you in too bad of a spot, rather than having a 2 or 3 card combo Van Cleef that just gets instantly nerfed back down with the silence.
Yeah, and some people say, well, can you always count on them having a silence or hex? You can't, but the thing with shaman is even if you have just a totem down, you can bring down a flame tongue and either put a rock biter on it or use a lightning bolt. They often have the 5 damage lava burst for 3+2 overload. Like, there are many ways for shaman to get rid of this card, so we don't like it versus shaman early game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rogue versus druid. So this is a matchup that you want to be also thinking, as you were about the warlock, about keeping sap. This is the same reason you keep hex when you're playing shaman versus druid. Early innervates, early coins, early shenanigans where something really scary comes out can be totally shut down by a sap, because not only do they lose the mana, they can't attack with that minion, and if they comboed it out, they basically lose all of that power.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sapping something like, say, sapping a turn 1, or turn 2 coin, innervate, Druid of the Claw. Yeah. Sapping that back, well, guess what? They just lost coin and innervate, and they still can't even play Druid of the Claw the next turn.
Yeah.
So that can really save the day, just to keep a sap in the tools handy. You're not too worried about as much early game removal against the Druid. So that's why it's kind of focused on the sap and things that are going to draw you cards, like the Shiv. And then, of course, your standard removal is still nice to have, your deadly poisons, your backstabs, for the early things that do get played around turn 4, such as Keeper of the Grove.
Yeah, I think we generally think about keeping Eviscerate because it's a really critical card to have after the first few turns, because they're going to start to have heavy health minions, sort of not fatties, but kind of slightly bigger than the small guys, and that stuff you're gonna want your Eviscerate on. You probably won't use it in your first couple turns, but to throw it away is probably a mistake.
Absolutely. And just like the warrior, if you have the coin, something like a turn 1 Edwin Van Cleef is very nice.
Turn 2?
Sorry, turn 2 Edwin Van Cleef is very nice.
I want that turn 1 Edwin. That'd be nice.
So do I. So yeah, something like that's really nice. A turn 2 4/4, or if you happen to have something small on that you backstabbed and had that 6/6. But even just the 4/4 makes it really difficult. That's going to be going into his turn 3, and for him to actually be able to deal with it, he would need to use an innervate to be able to clear it. And just to use like an innervate to clear a 4/4, you're still looking to be in a really good spot there.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to just touch briefly on each of the matchups we haven't discussed? The priest, the paladin, what kind of things you want to hold on to? What they're like, basically?
Sure. We have priest, paladin, and mage, and those all play relatively similar, with the exception of being the mage. Your loot hoarder is obviously a little bit weaker against the mage. But generally, you're just kind of looking for your standard toolkit of card draw and some early game removal. Paladin is probably your best matchup because your hero power weapon is going to be able to take care of 2 tokens if that's all your opponent can play of for just 2 mana. So you're really in a good situation. But you're really just looking for that early game board control, early game card draw. Mage you have to be a little bit more wary of these days because there are some aggro mages that are popping up.
Yeah.
So mage you want to treat a little bit more like the hunter. I would say for a mage you would want to load up a little bit more on the removal just in case you're running into one of these new super aggressive decks. Treat it a little bit like the hunter or the
warlock, right? I kind of think of it like the warlock, where the mortal coil is equivalent to the mage hero power.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, you would maybe for the Farseer instead of your loot hoarder.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're going to take damage, so the Farseer is fine. A 3 health minion, they're going to have to clear with the Frostbolt or something else, and that's a pain. So definitely more like, yeah, either or. Great. So the next segment, which we will jump right into, is the customs with analysis. And I'm going to be playing the Miracle Rogue, and my good buddy here, Tarn, is going to be playing the Handlock. And here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. We chose this matchup because it is, generally speaking, a very solid matchup overall. And we also wanted to examine the possibility of, you're on the ladder, you see a warlock, you got to protect yourself against Zulok. What happens afterwards when you discover that that's not actually what you're facing? What can you do to kind of get yourself in the right and control the game moving forward?
Yeah, so versus a Handlock, you wouldn't want Fan of Knives, but versus Zulok, you would. So we're going to keep the Deadly Poison. We're going to get rid of the Preparation. Do you agree, same way versus one, you'd want the Fan versus the other, you would not generally?
Absolutely, yeah. So with our assumptions, we probably would keep the Fan of Knives.
Yeah.
That can set up a pretty nice turn 3, especially if you have something else to go with it, be it your weapon or be it a backstab.
So now we've got a Van Cleef Fan of Knives Deadly Poison, which is not that great, but we've now got an Eviscerate, which is a little bit better. So turn 1, nothing to do, pass. You're kind of determining when you're the rogue without the coin. You're in one disadvantage that you don't have the coin. You can't get the extra mana out, get the extra combo out, but you're at the advantage that, or you're at the additional disadvantage that you don't get to see what they do first, because you kind of want to know, are they going to on turn 2 life tap? Because that's a sure sign. So
right.
I've drawn a Shiv,
and along with what you just said, that paying attention to that turn 1 is critical. You notice that I did not play anything on my turn 1, so you've got to assume, okay, we're maybe not facing the Zulok here. Of course, there are some Zulok styles that hold on to cards for a couple of turns before they start really flooding.
Yeah.
But it's a big indication if there's not a 1-drop coming out right away.
And if they don't have a 1-drop, 90% of the time, if it's Zulok, that's just really, really bad. So you're fine. You should generally assume this is Handlock when turn 1 comes out. So
especially considering that the Warlock has the coin. If nothing's played with the coin, you're pretty safe.
That's a really good point. So he didn't have a 1 or 2 or multiple 1s and 2s. This has got to be Handlock. That's a really excellent point. So do you Shiv for 1 damage, get an extra card, or do you just pick up that weapon?
Generally speaking, once you've decided it's the Handlock, you would probably just go for the weapon, hit the face for 1, and see how it plays out. Saving that Shiv later on can play into a combo of, say, doing Shiv Eviscerate for a total of 5 damage, knocking off something like an Ancient Watcher, which is pretty nice, and still drawing a card in the process.
So you make a good point. Card draw is one thing to keep in mind with a rogue, but the other critical thing to keep in mind here is combos. And having a 2-cost spell like a Shiv, while it draws you a card, it also gives you an early access to some combos with cards you might want to play. So we have the option to prep Shiv Edwin or prep Eviscerate Edwin, and I don't think those are bad, but we know it's a Handlock, so what would you do here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think drawing the preparation is a really nice draw here. You know that the handlock really doesn't have much hard removal until it gets into the 6 mana range and is able to siphon soul, especially a handlock that doesn't have anything on the board. So if you're able to preparation, shiv, draw a card, and play down a 6/6 minion, that's that's a really strong position.
What if I draw another preparation? Do I play out a do I play the eviscerate and then the Edwin? Like, how do you go? Is that might be too much, right? And you hit the face.
It might
of
be
course,
putting
right?
a little bit in one basket, but I think that could just straight out win you the game, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if the handlock probably wouldn't be able to deal with it, but the 6/6 is the safer play. You're probably going to want to save that preparation for later on, for when you're drawing cards with your auctioneer and really setting up a combo.
Yeah, so I hit the face there, getting him down to 25 health. You're going to want to keep the handlock in the 15 to 16 health range. I even kind of prefer the 16 to 17 health range, maybe even 18, because they're going to start life tapping, which makes it really hard to play their Molten Giants. So that being said, I did attack face. I might not be attacking much more other than with the 6/6 once. So it might be about deadly poisoning a weapon and holding on to it now in the future. But
Absolutely.
here we go. Earthen Ring, very common play for the handlock.
Yep. Actually, it's forcing that handlock to be in an uncomfortable situation. Typically, you wouldn't want to be playing the Earthen Ring that early, but that can tell you that he's got things like maybe Giants in his hand that he can't play yet. If you're not seeing a Drake getting coined out on that turn 3, that's really good situation.
Yeah. What would you do? What would
know,
you play here, considering that I drew the sap, which is probably not very useful?
Here, sitting at 28 health with your 6/6 on board, I think it would be perfectly fine to weapon up, deadly poison, clear the board, and hit the face for 6 damage.
That is a solid play. And as you guys have noticed, there's a turn timer in customs, which is thank you to Blizzard, which also means that there's a turn timer in tournaments. And if you didn't hear it earlier, Golden Egg Weekly, it's Friday nights at 6 p.m. PST or 9 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard, and I'll be casting with Eggy with some help of DKMR guys doing some admin for us in the back end, helping to keep the stream clean and fun, and it's going to be a great one. So come on out, check it out. People can't spend an hour playing turns. That timer comes right out every time. Okay.
Absolutely. The turn timer is so welcome. I'm a huge fan of that.
So
finally, we're going to see some fast tournament play.
So we've got some good stuff here. We can bring out an Eviscerate for 4 with a combo. We can do 6 damage with our Van Cleef. We've got 3 damage on our knife. We even got an SI agent for 2. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, while it isn't something that's taunted up, you also do have sap. And sap's not a bad option if you would like to keep the pressure on. It is also something that's really nice to hold on to. If you're holding on to it, you may straight up just take the damage to the face and SI agent and eviscerate to clear the giant while still keeping your 6/6.
What about Fan of Knives and Eviscerate? We can Fan of Knives for 1, Eviscerate for 4, that's 5, and finish it off with the knife.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that. That gets you the extra card.
Here we go.
And as the turn timer comes, we're going to have to start doing some customs with analysis a little more quickly. So I'm at 19 health, which means I'm getting down to that range. And the Warlock's at 16. So I actually probably want to just focus on clearing the board now from now on.
Yeah, clearing the board and setting up for a nice later game combo, I think would be a really good place to focus.
Shields up.
Well, yeah, I've gotten up to 19, which is nice. So that gives me a little bit more room to do some damage, but not much. And I've drawn the Assassin's Blade. So there's quite a few combos here, and I don't think you'd want to sap either of these minions. So there is the option here to SI Agent but you can't SI and Assassin's Blade. So the SI becomes a little bit less useful here.
Yeah, it's tough. I'd say in this situation, you would really be hoping to play like an auctioneer, and start going to town there, like an auctioneer conceal. But I think getting out the Assassin's Blade and clearing the board is probably your best option.
Do I want to take the extra point of damage and keep it from Van Cleef, or do I want Van Cleef to take the extra point of damage?
I think in this situation, you'd say the one thing you'd be worried about... Well, there'd be two things that you could be worried about, and that would be Hellfire, which would do 3 damage, thus killing your Van Cleef, or Soulfire, which does 4 damage. However, that's just really a preference choice. The Warlock, being already at 19 health, is probably going to be looking to life tap rather than Hellfire if he's wanting to take any more damage at all.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep Van Cleef at 4, and I really do need to get out my combo. A really good card here would be an Earthen Ring Farseer for us to get back up to 19.
Absolutely.
We haven't drawn into a Gadget's End, which is not great, because that would have enabled us to draw into many things. Loses Mortal Coil, not a very useful card. That was a really good play from the hand lock, Mr. Tarn. And we've got a Naked Defender. That's good. That's a bit of a desperation move.
Yeah, that tells you obviously that, you know, there's the hand is not that strong. You know, there's not giants in there to be played necessarily. Well, there's definitely nothing like a Twilight Drake, because that would have been played for 4 mana.
Yeah.
Obviously not a Ancient Watcher.
So
So
Tarn,
when you see something like that,
Yeah.
that's really nice.
What would you do here? Because I don't really have a way of clearing that minion without taking the more damage from my face, getting myself down to 14, which is a little scary. What would you do in this situation?
This one's tough, because you'd want to get a little bit of presence on board, but I mean, you definitely want to clear. So I would definitely take care of the Defender of Argus. But then, as far as anything else, you might just want to play the SI agent. You're not doing a combo with it, which is unfortunate, but you are leaving yourself the ability to do its 3 damage later on.
Yeah, that's not an ideal turn, and the reason is we haven't drawn into our gadgets. And so both players are on the weaker end of their potential spectrums at the moment.
Oh boy.
Shields up.
Well, this is not looking good for the hand lock. All we need to do is draw into our cards to get something going here. All right.
Absolutely.
We
And that's
can
not a bad card to draw.
we can Deadly Poison. We can. Problem with Deadly Poison is if you Blade Flurry, you're going to do so much damage to the Warlock that he's going to be able to get out his Moltons, which is bad news bears. So I think we don't want to do that. I think if anything, we just want to hit the Sun Fury and trade minions here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the safer play. One tell is that a Molten was not played last turn. A Molten could have been played for 5 mana and been taunted up for 2 extra mana.
Okay.
So you probably can assume that there is not a Molten Giant in hand. However, since you haven't seen a Molten Giant, you do know that there are 2 Molten Giants coming.
Yeah.
But you probably can safely assume that Molten Giant is not in hand.
All right, we got one more use on that Assassin's Blade, and we're probably going to want to use it as a Blade Flurry. So we're probably going to have to hold on to that till we get a nice combo. Ooh, Mortal Coil right on time. $13 health. Watcher with nothing to go with it, right? Because he's used 3 of his 4 enablers. Oh, he does have the Owl, so he might be saving it till next turn because he doesn't want to use the Owl this turn.
Yeah, generally speaking, I think that the owl would be saved to see either if he needs to silence something on the opponent's side or, activate his minion.
I really don't have a play here. And next turn, the handlock's going to be down to 11. So wow. I'm actually thinking Blade Flurry here. What would you do?
Yeah, you know what? Blade Flurry, you deal 5 damage to the face, you clear the minion, and then you can at least weapon back up. You still have that sap in hand, so you're still fine, even if something super scary like a giant comes down.
Do you attack face for 1?
Yeah, you might as well. He's already below 10, so giant's already free at this point. You might as well keep up the pressure.
This is like the slowest game ever for handlock and rogue. Did you mulligan properly?
I tried.
Alex Straza. All right. Well, this is interesting. I can sap that, and then you can bring it back down, and you can give me 15 health, but you'll probably just give yourself 15 health again. I think we're going to sap here. I don't think there's really another play.
Yeah, it's tough. Sapping an Alex Straza, I mean, that means, unless you get the combo that kills me, I will be able to reset myself back up to 15 health. So that's definitely brutal, but I think you can't let it be on board and hitting you for 8 damage.
I mean, the fact that I don't have gadgets in and I'm through half my deck right now is tough. I also don't have the oh, look, it's all coming out now. I also don't have the I was going to say Leroy, because I have Leroy Shadow Step, which is 12 damage plus, backstab. Well, that doesn't work on a minion. Plus any other 2 damage would have been game. So I think I have to play the Drake and hope to get lucky here, and then I'm going to sap obviously one of these.
Right.
Preparation could be helpful, but right now it's not. So I feel like it's sap probably the Mountain Giant, because the Molten's going to be cheap once you, Mountain Giant's harder to play.
With the Mountain Giant. The Molten Giant's going to be free.
Yeah.
The Mountain Giant's going to be cheap, but it's not going to be free.
Not good. This is a really tough situation. No Leroy, no gadgets in. So this definitely makes the argument for keeping one of those. Although we didn't have them in the mulligan, but... Oh, that's just not fun. What you doing? What you doing?
I might have Leroy.
GG.
So that was, I think we definitely made all the right choices. It was a little bit of a strange game in terms of the handlock didn't get any of the early game things like Ancient Watcher or Twilight Drake.
Yeah.
I didn't draw a single Ancient Watcher or Twilight Drake, so that means I had those 4 cards still in the deck.
Yeah.
Or literally any of my giants until the last 3 turns.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you did not have your Auctioneer, and so you were not able to get all that card draw that you really, really wanted in the mid-game, and that really, really hurt.
Absolutely. So, with that, we will move to the last segment, which will also be highlighting the Miracle Rogue on the ladder. So, here we go.
Right. See, you just had to get that loss out of the system, and now when it matters for some points, for some virtual points, we're going to take it down.
It's all about the virtual points, because we know that's the most important thing.
That's what I live for.
All right, we have a mage, and if the meta dictates, this is aggro mage. So, Assassin's Blade no good, Cold Blood no good, Loot Hoarder no good, Deadly Poison good.
Yep. As much as we'd love that Loot Hoarder, we would like some more removal. We'd really like an SI agent. We'd like a backstab, and we got a second Deadly Poison and a backstab, so that's solid. Yeah,
even if we coin out the Loot Hoarder on turn 1, his turn 2 is almost always going to be hero power. There's no reason not to.
Mm-hmm.
The pleasure is much.
I feel like there's nothing to do there, so I just passed.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Marshy. Armani Berserker. This is a good opportunity here to play the Loot Hoarder. Just kidding. This is a good opportunity to weapon up, coin, deadly poison, hit the face.
Well, hit the berserker.
Did I say hit the face? Hit the berserker.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really the only good play here. Unfortunately,
And it's a fine play because we've got two deadly poisons.
It's absolutely great. We have a second deadly poison, and we still have that 3 damage coming up.
Yeah. You could backstab shiv that thing as well. Nothing wrong with that, but I like getting the extra charge out of the weapon going.
Yeah, it's nice to have early. It gives us the options if he plays something scary on turn 4, like a...
So this brings up an interesting point. So we have a loot hoarder, which on his turn 4 might be awkward to use his hero power on. So we don't want to backstab this minion. We want to kill it straight away since it only does 1 damage to us. So I'm thinking about loot hoarder here after we kill the acolyte.
Yeah, I think loot hoarder is definitely okay here. He's wanting to look to play something like a water elemental on turn 4, and if he's having to use 2 of his mana to give you a card, then that's not bad. You know,
yeah.
The loot hoarder, while you don't want to mulligan for it in the mage, playing it around turn 3, turn 4 isn't all that bad.
Okay, this is interesting. Buff the mana worm. Get the loot hoarder down. And that's fine. Using a removal spell on a loot hoarder is fine. The hero power is where it's painful. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this is a pretty... I would tend to backstab, shiv, weapon up. That would tend to be my play here. But we could also hope to use those kind of cards in a combo with Van Cleef later. So we could weapon deadly poison here.
Yeah, this is a tough situation. A lot of people might be super tempted to do something like, oops, that's a shadow step, not preparation. I thought that was preparation in hand. If that was preparation, like a backstab, preparation, shiv, Van Cleef, which leaves you open to something like a polymorph, and that would just be a nightmare. Yeah. So what you mentioned, I think the backstab, shiv, weaponing up is perfectly fine because we have the deadly poison lined up for the next turn, which could combo easily with Van Cleef.
Always the backstab first. Shiv. Weapon. Do you go face or do you hold it because of the deadly poison? Hold it?
You definitely want to hold it. Obviously, that's a tell that you have deadly poison, but tells be damned. You would want 2 attacks with your deadly poison rather than 1.
Alright, we got a water elemental. So, that can be cleared by many a thing. And you've got your deadly poison eviscerate combo. You've got your well, you can't do an eviscerate SI. Actually, no, you can't do an eviscerate SI and deadly poison because you'd have to play one of these minions first.
Right.
So I feel like it's deadly poison. You can't kill him with SI. So I feel like it's deadly poison eviscerate here. Yep.
And it is unfortunately going to lock you out from attacking next turn with your weapon, but that's it's kind of the way it has to be.
What do you do with the extra 2 mana? Give it to the Hearthstone gods?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, there's can't do much. We luckily do have the Auctioneer and Conceal and you know, Shadow Step, so we have possibility of starting to draw cards here.
So we could Earthen Ring and SI, but we're not going to kill anything. We certainly want to take out... we can't attack because we're frozen. So actually that's kind of tricky here.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate that he was able to bring out another Frost Elemental right away.
Yeah. Would you Earthen Ring and then SI the 3/6?
Yeah, that's not too bad. There is the option, of course, of just Gadgetzin and Conceal.
Actually, that's not bad. I like that.
Out.
I like
we're
that.
definitely going to start taking some massive damage, but at least he's going to be concealed.
Let's do that.
It could be cleared with the Flame Strike, but yeah.
I like that.
We're going to get a card.
We've got the Conceal. Got a Sap, which is really nice. We like that Sap. So next turn we're going to have 7 mana. SI Agent, Sap, that's 5. Flame Strike comes down, well played.
Oh, man.
And we're frozen again. So I think we have to sap the elemental to stop ourselves from getting frozen each turn. What would you do?
Yeah, I probably would agree there. It's really unfortunate that he had Flame Strike, but that was the risk we took.
So Earthen Ring, Sap, Loot Hoarder?
Yeah, I think that's
I can't do that.
that is definitely well enough.
Do you mind if I roll need? That's the question. That's the question. Loot Hoarder's going to die to hero power, for sure. But... Oh, Rag. That's a nice little turn 8 play here.
Yikes.
Thankfully, the SI Agent will get rid of the Berserker. And we took some damage to the face. We've got Shadow Step combos here. So we could double Shadow Step Van Cleef, but that's still going to put us in a tricky spot.
Yeah, it's definitely tough.
To Van Cleef, SI Agent, Shadow Step Van Cleef.
Let's see. It would be really nice to have one more mana. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. I like that.
We couldn't Shadow Step him twice, but you know, I don't know what that's gonna to do for us. If we Shadow Step him again, he'll be he'll be above it, so maybe we should. He'll be above the 8/8.
Does that? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I was. Yes, you are correct.
Because we played
We do
2
have
more
one
cards.
mana left.
12-12.
I thought we were out of mana.
Yeah, we had one more
so
going.
we're hoping for no polymorphs here.
Yeah. Arcane
Unfortunately,
Intellect is good because it means he doesn't have one. But that looks like he... Oh, Faceless. That's even stronger.
Yeah. Yikes.
1, 2, 3. He gets 2 hits on the van. Goes to face. So we're not dead here. We're not dead here. What does the second one do? Oh, to the face. We're at 3. Okay. So we probably are dead here. But let's play it all out. So Fan of Knives. Preparation is not super helpful. 2 damage. So we can do 3, 4, 5 to one of those.
I think we might as well preparation the face and just, you know, go for it. Hopefully he doesn't have spells, and hopefully his Ragnaros is miss. There was no need to play preparation, but that's okay. There's no need for anything else.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going for Clear Town. I see. I gotcha.
Yeah. I'm going to Clear Town. I mean, the Edwin's still alive. It's GG, but he had a really good turn of events to handle our plays, and getting the tempo from the 2 Frost Elementals is really strong.
The Flame Strike really, really hurt.
Yeah, that too.
That's really what it comes down to.
Killing his own Blood Mage just for shits and giggles, hitting us for 3 to the face. Well played.
Bad manner, man. Bad manner is rampant.
So, the Rogue has successfully taken all 3 games this week. Very successful.
Absolutely.
Miracle Rogue. You can see the strength of this deck. But in all seriousness, it was a good learning experience, and we hope to play more, learn more, and maybe iron out some kinks in our play. But ultimately, I think with a Miracle Rogue, you're looking for some really critical draws and not to be shut down by certain things like a turn 7 Flame Strike on your Gadgetzan. Maybe we could have played the Gadgetzan on turn 6 or turn 5. That's something we could think about, but we had all that tempo in our way. So that's just something to think about, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily bad play. It was some some unlucky draws, definitely in that first matchup versus the Warlock. This one, we took the gamble that he didn't have Flame Strike. If he doesn't have Flame Strike there, we're in a really, really nice spot, sitting on a bunch of spells, a bunch of card draw coming up in the next couple of turns. But he did have the Flame Strike, and he correctly played. Some players on ladder may not actually Flame Strike just the one minion that's concealed, but he recognized its priority there, and so him playing that Flame Strike was really key.
Yeah, and it's funny because if that one of those rags hit Van Cleef, we would have been able to clear and had 8 more health. So a lot of things didn't go our way, but I think the real answer to what went wrong tonight is that I suck. So I think we can just all agree to that.
Well, I mean, everyone already knew that.
Yeah. BG.
I'll be here all night, folks. I'll be here all night.
No, you won't. Click. And oh man, that's so good. I was just gonna like kill you. I was gonna be like, and no, he's off. Turn off your monitor. Cool, guys. Well, thanks a lot for coming out this week and watching Masterclass. We'll be continuing to develop Miracle Rogue, other decks, looking at a variety of strong decks in the meta. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I haven't enjoyed losing so much in a long time. So thank you to Tarn for coming out and co-hosting with me. Thank you to all you for watching on YouTube or at iHearthU or on Twitch. It's been really fun. And I want to leave Tarn with the opportunity for some closing words.
No, another great solid episode. I think despite some of the results, the Miracle Rogue is super strong. It's also very fun to play. There are some finer elements that you need to learn. But yeah, another really fun episode. I'm looking forward to next week. You can catch me on my stream at twitch.tv/tarn33. I'll be up there tonight, and then unfortunately I'm heading out of town. So I'll be gone for a couple of days. But generally speaking, I'm there most nights when I'm around.
Nice. Come and watch me and Eggy cast the Golden Egg Weekly this Friday on his Twitch channel, which is Eggy StarCraft 2 or Eggy SC2. And with that, I will ask if any of you mind if I roll knee.